website where students could actually meet with each other and find information about one another, okay? From 2004 until 2012, so in 8 years, he created one of the biggest, most profitable companies, not only in the world, but in the history of the world. And today I'm going to talk about their story simply because I think we can all see how you cannot do this on your own. You cannot do this if you don't have a system around you that helps you, okay? So how did they manage to actually grow so much? You know, where Facebook today is actually bigger than many countries in the world. I know that I come from Slovenia. Our budget is 10 billion euros. Facebook today is worth 600 billion euros. So he's worth 60 times more than my whole country, okay? The whole thing actually started in end of January 2004, and he had the first, I'm gonna say prototype, the first minimum viable product of the website on February the 4th. And immediately, you know, 3 days after he has come up with this business idea, he was accused that he has actually stolen this idea. And he always said that no, he didn't steal anything. But nevertheless, he did settle with the 2 other students, and he actually gave them 1.2 million shares of Facebook, which in today's money would be around $300 million. You can find much more about this, you know, basically how he created this company, but also about the fight that he had about this idea in a movie. The movie called The Social Network is a very good movie. I think it even won some Oscars. And it's basically about how he created Facebook. The movie itself is based on a book, The Accidental Billionaires, and book, in my opinion, is even better than the movie. So I encourage you, if you like the Facebook story, check out the movie or read the book, okay? So what he did is, he developed this website. And the movie says that he developed it during one night of programming. He was a computer programmer, he still is. And after his girlfriend left him. So he was angry and he developed a code and developed some kind of a program that on the first night, basically half of the Harvard University used, and it was so widely used that it destroyed the servers of the whole university. And this is when he discovered that, wow, we have something here. This is, I don't know why people are using this, but people are using it a lot. We have discovered something that people really, really find useful, okay? In the first month, 50% of all the students became members of the Facebook. And interestingly enough, Facebook actually at that time was available only to Harvard students, okay? In the next 1 month, they added 3 more universities, and in 6 months, they added most universities, but still it was closed. You could not join Facebook unless you were at one of the US universities. As soon as this website started growing a lot, he needed help. He needed people that's gonna, he was a student working from a student dorm room in Harvard. So the first people that he employed actually were people in his room. So the first 4 founders of Facebook are actually other students in his room. And of course, he didn't have any money, so he couldn't pay them. So he gave them shares. He gave them stakes in the future company, okay? The first money came actually from one of the students, these 4 students. He had a father who had some money, and he gave them, I think, $20,000, which was just enough money to get the server space, because this was the most important resource. When the usage of Facebook was growing in those early days, they needed servers to do that. Interestingly enough, even though they were based in Boston, which is by some measurements the second best city to create a startup in the United States, and possibly one of the best cities in the world to create a startup, they decided to move to Silicon Valley. After 5 months, he decided to drop out of Harvard, which I think is a very brave decision. If you're a student and you're at Harvard and you say, you know what, I'm gonna drop out. If I would be his father, I would not approve of that. But nevertheless, they went to Silicon Valley, and actually they were joined by a person, by a very experienced startup person called Sean Parker. Sean Parker actually is the guy who created Napster, so another startup several years before that. And Napster went bankrupt. So the guy was actually bankrupt. But Napster, even though it went bankrupt, successfully disrupted, some people would say destroy, the music industry because it allowed for free copying of music. So Sean Parker was quite experienced in how you actually create big, important companies with a new idea, with a new business idea, with a new innovation. Okay? And Sean Parker was very important for them because he convinced them that they should actually focus on growth only. They should not focus on getting revenue. They should not focus on becoming profitable. They said, and he literally said that, you know what is better than $1 million? It's $1 billion, okay? And that means that these guys have an opportunity to create a global company. More or less by mistake, they discovered something that students find extremely, extremely interesting. And if he can spread out, if he can scale up these operations, this can become a big company. But in order to create a big company, you have to be in an environment that will support you, that will help you become a big company. So he convinced them that if, obviously they have costs, they need to employ developers, they need, if you go to Silicon Valley, that's expensive. But the best people are there, so you need to pay them somehow. And if you're not focusing on revenue, if you're not focusing on how you're going to earn money, you need somebody that's going to give you money. So these are the investors. The first investor was actually Peter Thiel, and Sean Parker was the guy who brought Peter Thiel into Facebook. And Peter Thiel gave them $500,000 for 10% stake in the company. And the important thing here is that Peter Thiel was maybe the best investor in Silicon Valley. He was a business angel, so he was investing in relatively small amounts of money. I'm not saying $500,000 is small, it's not small, but the guy was rich and he had a lot of money. So $500,000 for him was something he could probably afford to lose, okay? Because he made money with such companies before. He was one of the first investors in PayPal, and he had a network and he had experience and he had knowledge how to support fast-growing companies. So Sean Parker was basically a very experienced manager of a company, but Peter Thiel was very experienced investor into the company. So with these two people, these few dropout students from Boston actually got the maybe two best people in the Silicon Valley to help Facebook grow. Okay, and the first thing that actually Peter Thiel did was that even though he could finance this investment on his own, he could invest $500,000. He decided he wants to invite other co-investors into this deal. Okay, why? Why do you think that Peter Thiel, and he had enough money, and he could even lose $500,000? He would not be hungry if he lost that money. Why did he invite other people? Any idea?
Guys, please, you can use chat or even turn on your mic and ask Ales and answer your ideas just online.
Yeah, my suggestion would be he wanted to give a project some credibility, so other investors could see that like several investors already invested in the company. So yes, this would be my guess.
Yeah, I think this is absolutely correct. I think that what he wanted to do is he wanted as many people, as many good people as possible to help this company. And what is a bigger motivation to help this company than the fact that you are a small co-owner of this company? So he was willing to let his share be a little bit smaller and invite other people into the ownership of this company in order to make chances of success of this company higher. Okay? was not because he liked other people. Probably he did, otherwise he would not invite them. He didn't invite me, you know. But it was probably because it was a strategy for himself. The chances that his investment will make him some money was bigger if there would be more people trying to help Facebook. And in this way, with Sean Parker, with Peter Thiel, with the 3 additional investors, Facebook became part of this ecosystem of the Silicon Valley. You know, Silicon Valley, it's not a big place. Silicon Valley is a small place. I think that altogether there are 8 million people, which is not a small amount of people. But if you think about the fact that there are 330 million people in the United States, 7 billion people in the world, it's not a big place. Everybody knows everybody. So at the time when you had a new startup, a new business idea, migrating from Boston to San Francisco, getting Sean Parker on board, getting Peter Thiel on board, you know, Facebook became the talk of the town or the talk of the village. Investors and, you know, supporters, companies, partners, marketing guys, everybody were talking. There is this interesting new startup now, and Peter Thiel is invested in him, and Sean Parker is the manager. Okay. So in this way, they were creating some interest in this, and they were creating support for Facebook. Interestingly enough, the way how they invested was through a convertible loan, which basically means that they set up a goal for Facebook, and the goal was to reach 1.5 million users by the end of the year. So think about it, in less than 1 year, actually in less than 11 months, they had to come from 0 to 1.5 million users. That is a big number. Even today, not many startups get 1.5 million users. And if they don't reach this target, so if they reach a target, they would convert their 500,000 into ownership stake. But if they don't reach this target, Facebook has to return the 500,000 plus interest. And of course, it cannot return this because they spend the money already on growth. So essentially, they could force Facebook to go bankrupt. And interestingly enough, Facebook did not reach 1.5 million, they reached 1.2 million. And at that time, these investors could force Facebook to go bankrupt. Essentially, that would mean that Mark Zuckerberg and the 4 students would have to leave the company while these investors could take over the company. This actually, very similar thing happened with Cisco. Something similar happened with some other companies in the Silicon Valley. But in the case of Facebook, the investors actually said that they are very happy with the progress. Even though they didn't reach 1.5 million, they have all the belief, and they believe that this is a good team to make it happen. So they actually allowed Mark Zuckerberg to stay in the company. Of course, the company was growing. There were more and more users, and that means that they had to have more and more people working for the company, which meant more and more cost. But the company was not generating any revenue. They were not making any money. So they had to get more investors on board. After 14 months, in April 2005, venture capital fund called Ales Partners invested almost $13 million, meaning that the company was valuated at $100 million. So basically in 1 year, Facebook created a value from 0 to 100 million. Even for the United States, even for Silicon Valley, this is exceptionally fast, okay? And the important thing here is that Ales Partners Venture Capital Fund was probably the best venture capital fund there is in Silicon Valley. Even to this day, Ales Partners is one of the best VC funds on the market. They are present also in London, so if you want to talk with them, you can go to London and talk with them. But of course, they are good because they are smart. And they said, listen, we like Sean Parker, but you know he's bankrupt. We like Mark Zuckerberg and all the team, otherwise we would not invest. But you know what? Now this company is no longer a startup created in a dorm room in Harvard. This is now getting a big company. We are giving you guys $14 million. We want to have one of our people, you know, involved so that things don't go into strange direction. So the condition for the investment of $30 million was that they include Jim Breyer as another manager, as the third manager. And Jim Breyer was a very experienced manager. He has done this before. Okay? And Mark Zuckerberg was smart enough that he said, okay. And if you think about it, it's not such a simple decision to make. I mean, this is your company. This is your baby. and somebody comes and says, listen, I'm gonna bring another person here to manage your company. I like you, you can stay, but there's gonna be this guy, Jim, and work with him. I think that a lot of companies would actually not accept this condition. Mark was smart enough to accept it, okay? And of course, let's not forget, he also needed the money, and he needed, the bigger Facebook got, the more money he needed, because the bigger it was, the more cost it was generating. In April 2006, so 1 year after that, these same investors invested another $27.5 million just to cover for the cost of this, at a valuation of 500 million. I don't know about Ukraine, but 500 million is a lot of money in Slovenia. I think that the biggest bank in Slovenia was sold for about that amount of money. Okay, so Facebook actually created a company which was as valuable as the biggest bank in our country in 2 years' time. Of course, it goes without saying that the reason why this value was created by this company, it was simply because it has so many users, okay? Because in September 2005, they started accepting users of Facebook coming from high schools, and in September 2006, they actually became free and open for everybody. Around that time, I first became aware that Facebook existed, and I wanted to join at that time, and I couldn't because I was not in a US high school or US university. So only after September 2006, I could actually start using it, okay? Of course, if you look at the graph here on this slide, these are still very, very, very early days of Facebook. I mean, we are talking about millions of users. It's a big company, it's a big website, but it's nothing to what it is today, okay? It meant, of course, that the company still needs to grow much more, and they needed a lot of money. So in October 2007, Microsoft invested $240 million for 1.6% of the company. And if you think about it, this is a crazy investment. I mean, somebody gives you 240 million, and all they get is less than 2% of the company. They have no influence over any business decisions, nothing, basically. The value of the company for this investment was estimated at $15 billion, okay? We are talking about a company which is, check out where October 2007 is on the graph, okay? It's still a relatively small company. It has less than 100 million users, absolutely generating a lot of loss. It's not generating profit at all. Things can very much go in different directions. There is no guarantee that Facebook at this point will be successful, especially because the competition was starting to emerge, okay? So I'm gonna ask you here, why do you think Microsoft invested so much money at such a stupid evaluation?
Guys, what do you think? Please share your thoughts with us.
Maybe they could see that the future would be very bright for Facebook.
So as a financial investor, nobody likes losing money, even Microsoft, they don't like losing money. So they were betting on they're gonna make some profit with this, for sure. But I don't think that was the main reason. It was also very risky, let's not forget this. They invested 240 million, and there was a chance that they're gonna lose all of this, okay? And let's get some numbers right here. Microsoft at that time had $20 billion in profit. So they invested 1% of their profit, not even revenue, profit, into this. So for Microsoft, probably they could afford to lose even these $240 million, okay? So I think financial aspect for sure was one of these things, but I think there was a different reason. Anybody has any idea?
I see that Natalia raised her hand, so.
Maybe they wanted further to buy Facebook and to make it a part of Microsoft?
Actually, they could buy it at that time. Microsoft had enough money to pay the $15 billion and buy it. Okay, I think that they were thinking about it, but if they really wanted to buy it, they would buy it. So the fact that they just invested means that their reasoning must have been something different. Where does Microsoft come from? Where is the headquarters of Microsoft?
Seattle, State Washington.
Exactly. They are not in Silicon Valley. And I think Microsoft had a big problem at that time because they were not in Silicon Valley. They were in Seattle. That I think they were not sexy. They were not hot. They were not, you had these very, very interesting companies emerging in Silicon Valley, companies like Google, companies like, I don't know, Yahoo was strong at that time still, and there were some other companies there. So all the bright people, all the best people, all the best developers, all the best managers wanted to work for Google, they wanted to work for Apple, they wanted to work for all these other companies in Silicon Valley. At the same time when they were there, when they were investing this money into Facebook, Microsoft actually opened up a new second headquarters in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is crazy expensive. It's not a little bit expensive. It's just don't buy anything in Silicon Valley. Microsoft bought hectares of land. I've been to Microsoft headquarters in Silicon Valley. They have their own bus. It's so big. They invested hundreds of millions of dollars in order for them to become part of the Silicon Valley ecosystem. And I think they invested $240 million to become part of this hot new startup called Facebook. Because I think they were their idea was, okay, we're not hot, we have problems recruiting people, we have problems being part of this ecosystem. Facebook is gonna help us become part of that ecosystem. And we are willing to invest this amount of money. Maybe we're gonna make some money out of this in the future. Maybe we're gonna lose this money, but we can afford to lose 240 million. Let's do this. Interestingly enough, I think that also the previous investors in Facebook, Accel Venture Capital, Peter Thiel, and all the other investors, I think they intentionally targeted Microsoft to invest because they were looking at Microsoft as a potential exit. If things go wrong, Microsoft will buy them out so they don't lose all the money that they have invested. So I think this was a marriage of convenience. Microsoft was looking for strategic reasons, becoming part of the Silicon Valley ecosystems. Facebook was looking as a backup plan. Their plan was very clear, but if something would go wrong, if Google would create a better social network than Facebook, they could always still sell everything to Microsoft. Okay, let's talk about profit a little bit. October 2004, this is 4.5 years after Facebook was established, they were still making a lot of loss. They were losing a lot of money. They had a lot of costs and they did not have a lot of revenue. And at the time, Mark Zuckerberg actually was Time Person of the Year. And it's very interesting what he says here. He said, you know what, we don't really think about how we're gonna make a profit. In 3 years from now, in 2011, after almost 8 years of constant loss making, this is when we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna make some profit. But right now, that's not our focus, okay? That is a very interesting statement to say in a capitalist country like US, where profit is king. He says, we don't care about the profit. And actually he was right. They recorded the first positive cash flow in September 2009. And from February 2004 until September 2009, they constantly needed additional investments to cover all their costs. And of course, their costs were growing a lot. If you look at this, at the end of in 2009, they had $770 million in revenue, meaning that they had approximately that cost as well, that amount of cost as well. So this was a big company already, but losing money. And if you look at this, how they became big, they became by growing exponentially. They were doubling in size for 5 years nonstop, okay? From $52 million revenue in 2006 to $2 billion in 2010. they doubled in size every year. And actually, all the companies, the only companies in the world that can grow with a compounded annual growth rate of 100% per year come from Silicon Valley. No European companies can grow so fast. Lately, some Chinese companies are copying that, but at the time of the Facebook, Silicon Valley was the only place in the world where you can create companies that were growing so fast as Facebook. Okay, so this means that they did the correct decision to move away from Boston into the Silicon Valley. Okay. Happy ending came in May 2012 when Facebook was listed on Nasdaq Stock Exchange on the initial public offering. Each share of Facebook was valued at $38 US, meaning that the value of the company was estimated at $100 billion. So if you look at Microsoft, that invested, $240 million at 15 billion valuation, actually Microsoft did almost 7 times more money in 4 years. That was a good investment. Microsoft made a lot of money on Facebook, okay? Of course, at that time, all of us could buy stock, could buy shares. On the second day, the value of the shares fell down to $32. Today, the value of Facebook shares is $260. So if you would buy, I was tracking this and I could buy the shares at 38 or even 42 if I bought them on the second day, I would make a lot of money. And of course, I didn't. Now, when you have a company valued, so the company at the time was valued at $100 billion. Company today, Facebook today, is valued at more than $660 billion. Facebook is one of the 5 biggest companies in Silicon Valley. It's one of the biggest companies in the world. And it created this in a period of first 8 years. Okay. Mark Zuckerberg, interestingly, has 28% of the company. So he has less than half. And again, think about this. How many companies do you know that would get investors into the company? Of course, investing money, fueling the growth of the company. But at the same time, they're going to squeeze you out. So you're going to be a minority owner. Most of the companies that I know, 51% of the company, they want to retain, the power in the company. Mark Zuckerberg was smart enough to understand that 28% of 100 billion is much better than 51% of zero. Okay. His students from the dorm room, his first 4 founders, all had a few percentages of the Facebook. All of them are billionaires. Peter Thiel, 3%, Sean Parker, 4%. Again, each and everybody who had anything to do with Facebook earned a lot of money. And that is why they helped Facebook. It's not because they liked it. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. It's not because they thought, wow, we have to do something for the benefit of the great Silicon Valley or the state of California or whatever. At the end of the day, they invested and they helped this company because it was in their interest to help. Because if the value of the company increases, the value of their ownership increases as well. Interestingly, when they started, they had some guys painting the office walls. They didn't have some cash, so they paid him with a few stocks. They had somebody who was massaging them, and apparently this woman who was massaging them, she was also massaging Google managers before that, and all of them paid with stock. So this masseuse owns stock of Google as well as Facebook, and they are all millionaires today. Okay, and this is the most important thing, because the reason why they succeeded was not the reason why they succeeded was actually very simple. They were the fastest. They grew faster than anybody else because they were not the first. Myspace was the first social network, and it was a successful company. It was acquired for $300 million by Robert Murdoch. But MySpace was established, I think, 3 years before Facebook. But Facebook simply just, MySpace today went bankrupt. It doesn't exist anymore. Actually, they exist again now with something completely different because Facebook just blew them away. Okay. One reason why they were able to grow so fast is because they are in the IT industry. The barriers to entry of companies in the IT industry are much, much lower than in biotech or medicine or clean tech. But IT technologies, information technologies today are actually influencing the development of most, if not all, different industries. When I listen to medical startups these days, most of the time when I listen to them is how they are going to implement certain information technologies, not discovering a new drug or something like that. Of course, Facebook did everything right, almost everything right. Okay, they understood that they need to surround themselves with smart people. They need to surround themselves with experienced people who are gonna help them achieve this potential. They understood that there is great potential in what they do. They understood that as soon as they are successful, people will copy them. And actually they did. Google, the biggest company with the most money, with the best developers, copied Facebook, and they implemented Google+. If that is not a copy of Facebook, then I don't know what is. And if you had a fight between Google, which today has 100,000 employees and really all the money in the world, and Facebook, which was a small, fast-growing startup, who would you bet on? Who's going to win this battle? This Google or Facebook? The correct answer is Facebook. Facebook beat Google. Facebook beat MySpace, who were there first. Actually, Facebook beat everybody in the market of social networks. And we can talk later. They also, once they became really threatened by certain upstarts, companies like Instagram or WhatsApp, then they bought them immediately for crazy amounts of money, and they made a correct decision also. But Facebook was actually doing things very smartly. And one of the interesting smart things they did was actually the scale-up strategy, the marketing strategy. Because in the beginning, if you remember, I said that they were only available to Harvard students. And then they were only available to students of other universities. Well, the reason for that is actually quite simple. Imagine that you want to build a company, a social network, which has 100 million users. But imagine that you need to do that by investing into advertising, that you need to promote, come to Facebook, this is a great website. We will tell you the relationship status of everybody that you know, okay? If you need to pay for advertising today, the cost of acquiring new customers, the customer acquisition cost, is estimated at €1 per new customer. So if you want to get 100 million users, you need to invest 100 million euros. Facebook did not have that money. Even at a later stage, much later stage, they still didn't have so much money. So they had to develop a marketing strategy, which was basically free of charge. And the marketing strategy that was exclusive to the best universities meant that people from not the best universities wanted to join Facebook, even if Facebook was not advertising themselves at all. So this exclusive marketing strategy was actually intentionally done in order to lower the cost of acquiring new users. And actually Facebook understood very well that the value of Facebook, that the value of the product or the service that Facebook is offering is increasing the bigger it gets. It's a typical network effect. Facebook is useful if everybody that you know is on Facebook. The more people there are on Facebook, the more useful it becomes for each individual there. So this is why they were focused on growth alone, growth, only that. And this is why they had to implement innovative marketing strategies to grow faster than their competition. Okay, because the main reason for their success was this accelerated growth. They simply outgrew all their competitors who had maybe even better products than they did. And the way how they were able to achieve this as a new startup was that everybody in the whole system was helping them. They used the Silicon Valley ecosystem to get investments, to get managers, to get employees, so developers, to get everything that this company needed to grow really, really, really fast. The whole ecosystem was working to help them because they were motivated by the fact that at the end, they are going to create a global dominating company with a lot of value, so everybody in the end will make money on this. If you compare Facebook with Myspace, as I mentioned, Myspace actually started 3 years before Facebook, and it was even growing. It was growing 10% a year, 20% a year. It was doing this linear growth. But Facebook was growing exponentially. You have seen the graph of new users. It's a typical exponential graph. And by the way, the graph that I've shown you there, this one, if you check it out, it ends up at 800 million. You know how many users Facebook has today? 3 billion. So this graph here is still going on. It's still growing to this day. And this is the difference between a good company growing nicely, nice little business, what Myspace was, and a great company, which was Facebook, growing exponentially. And essentially, behind this is a very simple premise. What Facebook discovered was not the solution. It was not the website that made them valuable. It was the fact that they discovered a problem that people had. And the problem that people had was they wanted to be connected with other people. They wanted to have relevant information on other people. You know, when you're a student, you want to know a picture and the name and the address and the relationship status. When you're older, you want to know what your friends from primary school are doing, or how many kids they have, how many times they have already divorced, okay? But these are actually information that we want to have. And we are actually willing to pay for this information. Okay, we are not paying with money, we are paying with our data. And then Facebook is using the data to sell advertisements to us. But this is a problem that actually existed before Facebook, that existed before Myspace. Does anybody know what Facebook means? What is the meaning of the name Facebook?
Guys, give us your thoughts, maybe in chat, so you can write your answers.
I was a student in 95, 96, before internet, basically, or internet was just starting, absolutely before Facebook, okay? Something like address book, correct. Facebook is actually book of faces. So I remember the original Facebook, which was a book. In my university, students printed a book with faces of all the students and contact information. So the problem of staying connected with other students actually existed already. The problem of me that I wanted to know who my schoolmates in the primary school, if they are still alive and what they do now, you know, I lost contact with them, but I would, you know, sometimes I'm wondering, maybe it would be good to have a beer with them or something. This is a problem that existed before internet and the information technology enabled a solution like Facebook, okay? But this problem was hidden. We didn't know that this is such a big problem. We didn't know that everybody in the world has this problem. We didn't know that if you give them a chance, 3 billion people will connect into a platform with all these features, okay? And when Facebook discovered this problem and developed the first solution, really allowing people to connect, they understood very well that because they have a potential to become a global business. So once you discover a problem and you develop a solution to this problem, others will copy you and say, oh, this is what Facebook does. That's a problem. I didn't know people wanted to be connected, but listen, it's a website. How difficult can it be? I still, to this day, I get startups in Slovenia telling me I'm going to create the next Facebook. Last week, I had an application from a startup says, I'm going to develop the new social network. Well, guess what? You're 15 years too late. But guess what? Facebook was there at the right time with the right idea, with the right approach to developing the business. Fast growth is all that matters. Once you discover the problem, this becomes an opportunity. So the companies will notice that you have discovered, other companies will notice that you have discovered the problem, and they will copy you. You have some advantage, 6 months, I don't know, maybe more, but you don't have 5 years of advantage. And once they copy you, they can be faster than you if they have more support than you. So imagine that Facebook decided that, you know what, we're not gonna take Sean Parker and Peter Thiel and Axel Partners. No, we're gonna sell advertising, and we're gonna use the money from the advertising we sell and invest that into growing our product. So we're gonna grow organically. Okay, so in a few years, they become a company with a few million users, a nice little company, probably with some profit. And this is when Google notices them. Said, oh, wow, Facebook is doing this. We can do that. Let's create Google Plus. Let's give them all the money that they need to pay 100 million euros into marketing so that they get 100 million users. Okay, we can do that. We are Google. Okay. Facebook is out of the business. The only way, the only competitive advantage here was that they grew. They had this accelerated growth. Okay. Myspace didn't do it, and they went out of the business. Facebook did do it, and now they are dominating the market. And to do that, for this accelerated growth, you need help, and you get help from everybody. You have venture capital investors that provide you with money, of course, in exchange for an ownership stake. Okay, you need incubators to help you develop the product, to help you develop the idea. You need accelerators to help you develop your business model and to help you scale up your operations. You need everybody. They actually do help you, because in this way you will grow faster. And this is why with startups we don't measure how much they increase their operation from 1 year to another. I don't care about startups that grew for 10% or 20% per year. I'm interested in startups that grow 10% per week. I have startups that grow 10% per week. And if they grow so fast for a long period of time, this is going to become a global leader in a certain market. Alexander has a question. What do you think? Can Facebook beat Zoom with new Facebook Messenger? No. I think Zoom has won this game. I think what Facebook is doing with the Messenger room now is actually the same thing that Google did with Google Plus. They are too late to the game. And Zoom is now big enough that it has a lot of resources. You know, it's on stock exchange. They can raise a lot of money. They're profitable. They have become a standard, basically. I think the more interesting question is what can Facebook do with the shops that they are now doing, because they are going directly into competition with Shopify. And there, I think they might have more opportunity with that part. Okay. So that was more or less my case study of Facebook. And I want to ask you if you have any questions or if you have any comments. Do you use Facebook? Let's start with the easy ones. Do you use Facebook?
Guys, please put plus if you do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to surprise you with this answer because I teach case Facebook, but I actually use it maybe once a year, no more than that.
Mm.
But when I do use it, I know exactly why I'm using it. I'm trying to find some information about friends that I've lost along the way, that I don't know where they are. So for me, that information is actually quite valuable. And this raises a good question, you know. how much value does Facebook create for you? How much are you willing? Because Facebook is free of charge, like Google, okay? So you don't have to pay with cash, but you pay with other sources. But let's imagine that you would have to pay cash for Facebook. Would you pay for Facebook? And if so, how much?
Guys,
give me a number.
Yeah, give us some numbers.
If you need to pay for a yearly subscription on Facebook, how much would you pay?
We have 30 euros.
40 euros, yeah.
Per year. $5, $10.
$5 a month. Well, I'm much more stingy than you are. I would probably pay, let's say, 10, maybe 20 euros per year. 5 euros per year, yeah, pounds per year. And this is what I'm saying. I mean, they do provide certain, they do create value for us, even for me. And I'm really not a big Facebook user, but I do use it. They do solve some kind of a problem for me, okay? And actually, because I don't have to pay for it, I'm quite willing to allow them to use my data. I prefer for them to use my data and to get a lot of advertising from them than that I would have to pay for it. So all these discoveries that, wow, Facebook, Google, Samsung, Apple, that they are using our data, that's a bit disingenuous, you know. I mean, Facebook is using our data, and we know that they are using our data. And if you don't want them to use our data, then don't use Facebook. But we do use Facebook because it's also useful. More useful than the others. But, you know, it is useful. Anybody knows why? What? I'm going to give you a hint. It's not. Oh, $100, $200 per month. Excellent. Wow. A lot of different segments here.
Maybe it's information that Facebook stores.
Well, information, but which information? I'm actually willing to pay for one particular type of information.
Information about people, companies, and etc. So Facebook stores a lot of information.
Yeah. But I'm actually willing to pay for the names, because the main difference between Facebook and other social networks before them was that they were using the real name. From primary school that I lost contact 20 years ago with them, the only thing I know about them is their name. And on Myspace, you didn't have to use your real name. So on Myspace, your friend might be there, but his name would be XYZ. But on Facebook, his name would be exactly what I remember him to be. So on Facebook, I can actually find my friends. So I'm paying for the fact that I can find my friends and then see what they are doing and how they are doing, okay? And for me, it's worth it. I would pay, and the fact that I don't have to pay and just give them some information about me, it's okay. Are they used for spreading conspiracies? Of course. And a lot of other bullshit. And mostly these days, Facebook is an advertising platform. Facebook today is the second biggest marketing agency in the world. Google is the biggest digital marketing agency, but that today means any marketing agency. Facebook is the second one. So it's very much corporate, and I don't like it a lot, but they do solve a problem for me. So I do use it on occasion still. And actually 3 billion people still use it, even though there is a lot of bullshit on there, okay? And quite honestly, conspiracies I can ignore. What I really can't ignore is my friends posting these videos of stupid cats and children, and, you know, do you really need to share so much? So okay. Anyway, that's the story of Facebook, which I think has a lot of useful takeaways. But maybe the most useful takeaway is actually, okay, Silicon Valley is the best ecosystem in the world to create these kind of companies. However, yeah, Alexander likes cats. you can use the same accelerated growth almost anywhere in the world. I've done very recently, I've done some research about unicorns, billion-dollar companies. Estonia, a country of 1.3 million, has 4 unicorns. Poland has 2, Slovenia has 1. Croatia will have 1 probably this year. There are some very good companies in Bosnia, Serbia. There are some very good cybersecurity companies in Czech Republic. I'm not so sure about Ukraine, but I'm pretty sure there's some unicorns in Ukraine as well, which basically tells you that you can create these kind of companies, that you can use the same model as Facebook used almost anywhere in the world. You can absolutely use the same model in our countries. So the model of accelerated growth is not something that is exclusive to Silicon Valley or China or whatever. You can use it even in our countries, okay? And this actually leads me to a question that I've seen before and I did not answer. Do you think, Rosa is asking, do you think scientific companies, pharmacies can have exponential growth? I do think they can, but probably the industry specifics are important as well. And I'm going to give you an example of what I have in mind. My sister works in the pharmaceutical companies, and they have put a new drug, let's say, cancer treatment drug on the market. In the first year of sales, they created way more than $1 billion in sales. So they went from 0 to way more than $1 billion, almost $2 billion. And now they're growing further. However, to get to the first year of revenues, it took them 15 years. So they had 15 years of 0 before they had 1 billion. Okay? Because the barriers to entry in the pharmacy industry are just so big. You need 15 years of time to do all the clinical tests, and you need, estimation today is that you need to invest, first you need to invest $1 billion before you see if that's successful or not. But again, the most interesting startups even in the pharma industry are utilizing information technologies. The hottest startups in the pharma industry are actually AI startups that are creating a faster path to the market. So information technologies today are changing every single industry that you can think of. And if you can think of industry that has not been disrupted by information technologies yet, this is exactly where you should create your own startup, because every single industry is going to be disrupted. Adeni, what is the biggest challenge or threat to a new company starting up? Well, I think it's pretty simple, being too slow. I think, listen, you are startups, and we work with startups. We don't have the most resources. Big companies have more money, have more people, they have more of everything. Their good ideas are everywhere. So if you think that your idea is much better than any other idea in the world, you are mistaken. Good ideas are everywhere. And even if you have a good idea, people are going to copy your good idea very soon as you get to the market, okay? So the only real advantage that startups have is speed. They need to be faster. And you know what? You can be faster, much faster than big companies. Quite honestly, big companies today are afraid of startups because big companies know that they are slow. You know, they're like these big tankers, and startups are glizzers speeding by them and changing direction all the time and just being much more agile. That's why big companies, because they're afraid of startups, buy a lot of startups, which is good for you, which is good for us as an investor, which is probably even good for the big companies. So don't be slow. As a startup, speed is the only competitive advantage that you have.
Yes, we have one more question. It's from Rosa. Oh, it's probably a question to us, to our incubator. How will you advertise your online course? Yes, Actually, next week we are starting a financial course for startups. So we are inviting you to join. We will make some announcement in the emails, in our social networks. So please use this opportunity and get some financial knowledges. Oh, we have a question about Myspace. Does it exist now?
Yes and no. Both answers are correct. So as far as I know, Myspace went bankrupt. But then from the bankruptcy, they bought out the brand name MySpace. And MySpace, I think, now is doing something completely different. It's not, I don't think it's even a social network. What do you think about sex tech business domain? Do you work with the startups from sex tech? The answer is very simple. No, we are not allowed to do that. Actually, venture capital funds have prohibited sectors. There are certain sectors that we are not allowed to make investments. So all the fun sectors are not allowed for us. So guns, porn, and gambling. So, and that's not only true for us, our fund, this is true for all venture capital funds. So you will need to find different types of investors there.
But sex tech, it's not only about porn, it's mostly about healthcare and entertainment sometimes and other stuff, I think.
Yeah, I understand. I think we would have difficulties explaining this to our investors because, you know, venture capital works in a very simple way. We have these big investors on one side, they give us some money, we manage this money by investing it into a lot of startups. 9 out of 10 startups that we invest into will fail, but the last 10% will hopefully become the next Facebook, and we are all gonna be rich. And we're gonna make a lot of money for our investors. But we do have to report to our investors, and we do have to invest. Oh yeah, I forgot, drugs are also off the table. And this actually includes pharmaceutical industry has specialized venture capital funds that are mostly connected to the big pharma companies. So Roche and Novartis and that kind of companies have their own venture capital. So to give you an example why we can't invest into pharmaceuticals, we have to make a return. So we have to invest and then sell the companies that we have invested into in 10 years. But in developing new drugs, 10 years is not the pharma, which is a very interesting space, by the way. We simply don't have enough time to wait for the results of our investments. That's why there are special investors in pharma. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for your reply. I just asked about sex tech because I'm just wondering to know about the sex tech a little bit because I'm doing some researches, and so I just know that they gained 20 billion at 2020. So it's just nice info from you. Thanks.
I have no doubt about the fact that the information technology is really changing this space as well. It's like gambling, you know, think about casinos, okay? You know how casinos used to look like 20 years ago? You know, you would actually have to go in a casino and there would be a croupier and he would have a roulette table and completely analog space. Now gambling today is completely different. You know, you bet and win website, bet at home. It's internet gambling is much bigger than traditional gambling, okay? But we are not allowed to invest. We cannot invest there. So this industry has already, in my opinion, gambling has already been disrupted. I think it's going to be disrupted even more. But this is something where traditional venture capital cannot invest. Okay, a lot of time, for example, in the United States, you have medical marijuana. Okay, most of the investors cannot invest into that because it's still regarded as a drug. Okay, but then you have other investors. You know, venture capital is only one type of investors. You have other investors that can invest. Okay, you have impact investors, private equity, family offices, corporations.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome. Guys, you have any other questions? If not, I would like to give you our website. That's it, philarushcapital.com. If you go on the website, you're going to find the entry form. So you can apply there, fill out some data. And that means that on a weekly basis, we are looking at new applications. We're talking also that probably one of us will come to your demo day and listen to your presentations. Unfortunately, we have some pretty strict eligibility criteria. I don't want to bother you with this right now, but we have invested into Ukrainian companies before, but it's been difficult, but not because of us, mostly because of administration. Let's put it like this. But we see quite a lot of good startups originating from Ukraine. We like Ukrainian startups.
Yeah, that's true. We have lots of great companies, and you've mentioned and asked about unicorns. Actually, we have several in Ukraine. It's GitLab and Grammarly. Yeah.
Grammarly is Ukrainian? I didn't know that. I use it all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Great
It's
company.
excellent. Really, really good. We are hoping to invest into the Grammarly's competition now. We have a startup who is doing they say they're doing a better job than Grammarly.
Oh,
they all say that, you know.
Yeah, they're from Kiev and they're awesome.
Yeah, I have no idea where Facebook office for Ukraine is. Sorry, I know that for Europe they are in Dublin. That's the only thing that I know. And quite honestly, I would imagine that Facebook and all these big tech companies, they like Ireland a lot because of their tax environment. So I would imagine that Facebook, I don't know, maybe they're in Kiev, maybe they're in Moscow, but probably the safest bet is that they are in Dublin, and that's it. There is a strong Google campus in Warsaw, in Poland. Amazon is also in Warsaw, I know that. And Poland has invested a lot of money into startup ecosystems, okay? Czech Republic is also quite good because it has a few good companies there. But actually, if you look at in every single country, you will find good companies. And those are the companies that have actually gone through this accelerated growth. And these are the companies you should talk to. They have gone through this story that you are now starting. So they can share their experience with you. And if they like you, they will invest. They can invest. Guys, if you have no further questions, then I would wrap it up here. I remain available to you in case you need anything, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have one more announcement. So there's one person that is missing today. Actually, she's not missing, but she has some technical issues, and her mic is not working. It's Christina, our co-organizer. So I will read her message. So she says, many thanks to you for being with us this evening. Just to recap, this webinar is a part of Kharkiv Startup Marathon 2020, the joint initiative of UIPA and SEAL teams. So it's a Creative Spark project and Co-work Incubator. And next week, we'll be glad to see you at our next webinar with Paul Burns from University of Bedfordshire. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you, Christina.
23 мая, их всех вам на почту отправили помимо диабетического, но он уже...
So guys, if you want to know more about this, feel free. I mean, there is a lot of material on
Если
the
удобно,
internet.
могу вам сейчас его на почту переслать.
Guys, sorry, someone turned off. Can you turn off the mic?
На Viber удобно, да?
Sorry.
Just a moment. We will fix it.
I would like to say, Pablo,
Yep.
Paul has already said it, but we are going to launch an online course very soon, maybe today, tomorrow. It's going to take place for a few weeks. It's very short, and we are going to learn a lot. And even me is going to do it. It's going to be organized by Ivan Zubik from Goldsmith University. And at the end of the course, we will have a little test that I'm sure that we all will pass because we can see the online teaching as many times as we need it. And then we will have a certificate from Creative Sparks that we have done this course. So it's going to be useful for all of us for learning. And we also will have a certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosa. So Ales is sending some tips. Yep. Resources.
But guys, a lot of these things are free of charge on the internet. Just browse a little bit and you will find a lot. You will find really a lot of stuff. And trust me, you don't need to buy expensive books to learn this because, you know, just use everything that you can. That's a startup way, come on, you know.
Natalia asks, is this a free course? Yes, the course is free. So just you need to, yeah, so the course is free. You can join it. We will send the announcement about the start of the course on your email. Yes, someone says, thanks, excellent presentation. Many thanks to the speakers and the organizers. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for joining us today. So if you have no other questions, we can just say thanks to Ales. Yeah, it was a great presentation, very interesting, great insights. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much in the messenger. Great, guys. So see you next week on our next webinar. You will receive an invitation on your email and check our social networks for the announcements. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.